Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics for the PowerBasic Console Compiler. Today, we will look at starting development using the Console Compiler. The Windows console is the classic environment for running text-based command line applications in Windows. This isn't the interface used with the old MS-DOS applications. Here you have access to the complete Windows 32 API. PowerBasic console applications can normally have a 2 GB memory area to work within. As you are watching this video, you may well have joined a team of programmers using PowerBasic, or have replaced the single programmer in your organization with these skills, and be expected to support the applications that they have created. Many programmers have been in this situation, where the applications function, but there is little or no documentation, and the programmer who did create them has left the company to work elsewhere and is not contactable. This is usually followed by, can we have some changes to the application requests? So in this first part of the PowerBasic console course, we'll start from scratch and get you up to speed. The first task is probably working out exactly what do you have to do to launch the console compiler. So let's go right back to the file manager and find it on the computer. If you have inherited a laptop or desktop computer on which PowerBasic console applications have been developed, there may well be a shortcut on the desktop. However, if there is no shortcut, it could have been installed on any volume within that machine. So, as always, start on the C drive. We're looking for a folder called PowerBasic. And in this case, on my machine, PowerBasic is installed on my H drive. So if the application is already installed on a computer, you'll find it in one of these folders, depending on which version of PowerBasic you're actually running. The most recent version of the console compiler is version 6, which we have in this folder here. If we go into that folder, we'll see a number of subfolders. You will have the bin folder, the samples folder, the Windows API folder, and depending on how your developer had actually worked on PowerBasic, you may well have another Windows API folder with some more include files. The folder we're interested in is the bin folder. If we open that one up, we'll see a number of files. The file you're looking for is ccedit.exe. This is the application we launched to get the console compiler going on the machine. If we double click on that, we can see we're now in the console compiler. If PowerBasic had been installed on this computer, then everything should work normally. However, a good way to test that is to click on the toolbar on the very last icon, which is the help file. If you click on this and it comes up quite successfully, then PowerBasic is probably properly configured. If it comes up with a message to say it cannot find a help file, we may have to make some adjustments to PowerBasic's ini file. The ini file we can find further down the same bin folder, pbcc.ini. If we right-click on this and open it up with Notepad, you'll see inside this initialization file there are a number of paths mentioned. In this case, it defines where the help file is actually stored, in the H PowerBasic pbcc60 bin folder. If your version of PowerBasic has not been configured correctly, then you may have to edit this ini file and amend these paths. We have a path for the templates and a path for settings, and an additional path for includes. This ini file is the primary storage for all of these paths. If we go into the Windows menu and pick Window Options, you'll see a number of tabs come up on your dialog. If we click on the Compiler tab, this is where you can define the include file, and when this is changed, this is saved into that ini file. There's an ellipse button on the right-hand side of this text box. If we click on that, it allows you to set up multiple paths for searching folders for include files. We'll cover that later when we come to do programming. So before we start doing any programming, let's have a look around the integrated development environment that comes with the console compiler. As you will see, at the top of the screen we have a toolbar, and on that toolbar are a number of icons. If we look at the very first icon, there's a little drop-down arrow which lets you select one of the templates for the application. We have console program, one of my own templates, which is a demo template, one for include files, one for plain text, one for PowerBasic static linked libraries, and one for program with no console. So let's click on the very top one. This template gives you the very basics for writing a PowerBasic console application. It gives you two lines at the very top of the screen. Compile exe, which is telling PowerBasic that we wish to compile this source code into an executable. The next line, dim all, is an instruction to PowerBasic that all your variables must be dimensioned or declared before use. This is a very necessary line to have, as it saves any typos in variables, which can cause you immeasurable problems to debug later on. The next part is a declaration of a function, the beginning and the end of the function. This function is pbmain. This will be the very first function which is run when the application is launched. The next icon on the toolbar is this one, the Open File icon. If you click on this, it will give you a dialog allowing you to select a PowerBasic application to open up. If we go back to the PowerBasic folder and into the PBCC60 folder and into the samples folder, in here is some sample source code that you can have a look at. If we look inside the parse folder, we'll see there are two applications in here, parse1 and parse2. Each of these files has a BAS extension. By convention, files with a BAS extension are your main application files. You can have files with an INC extension, which stands for include. These are secondary files which are included into your main basic files. But again, we'll cover those later. So if we open up this first file, and we can see our source code. As you can see, we now have a new tab at the top of our screen. Each new file you load into this environment will be created in a separate tab, allowing you to have multiple files open at the one time. If we go back to our first, this is our basic template. So while we are here, we will create our first application, being a very simple hello world. And we now have the third icon clickable. This is the one that allows you to save your files. So if we click on that, we will save this into a folder. And we will call our file demo1 and click on the save button. Once the application has been saved, the save icon is grayed out. If we attempted to run this application, you'll see it will run very quickly, open a console window, and then the console window will close. This is because once the code has been executed, we get to the end of the function, the pbmain function, and since that is the primary function and only function in this application, the application then closes, which closes the console window. When you're developing console applications, it might be handy to keep the console window open until you're ready to close it. So we can put another command in that allows us to do that. The wait key command allows us to halt the application, waiting on you pressing any key on the keyboard, as you will see from the PowerBasic help file. So if we attempted to run our application once more, the console would remain on screen, waiting for you to press a key on the keyboard. So at this point, you can see anything that you've sent off to the console. anything you've printed on it. And if we now hit a button on the keyboard, the application will close. When you compile your application, you can click on this icon here on the toolbar. This will attempt to compile, and it will give you information on screen to say what it's done and has it compiled successfully or not. This is a successful compilation. If we put something in here, like a dot on the end, and attempted to compile now, it would not be able to compile because this is a syntax error. And this is the kind of error you will see when you've mistyped something on screen. It's telling us the line that has the issue and the fact it's a syntax error. So we can go to line 8, which is here, and we can take the dot off the end. Attempting to compile once more will allow it to compile successfully. The next icon on our toolbar allows you to print the source code out to a local printer. The icon after this allows you to cut selected text to the clipboard. So we could select the entire function, and then the button would be enabled. So we could cut that to the clipboard and cut it out altogether. You also have copy and paste. Since we have put text into the clipboard, we can now paste it back into PowerBasic. There will become times when your applications become quite large, and you will need a way for searching out text within the application. Move your cursor to the very beginning of your text. Click on the button to find text. Type in what you're searching for, the direction you wish to search, up or down, and click on Find Next. And it will stop, highlighted on the entry it has found. You can, of course, click Find Next to see if there are any more matches. The other useful thing you will find is the F2 button. If we press the F2 button now, it will give us a list of all the functions and subroutines within this particular application. In this case, there is only one function. If we click Find in All Files, we'll find it has two because we have two files loaded, the demo one and the parse one. It's now showing a PB main function on both of those. If we click on the line, it will take us directly to the beginning of that function in that application. So if you have several files loaded, you can use the F2 button to find a specific function regardless of which file it actually exists in. If you only want to search in the current file, then untick Find in All Files. The next icon on the toolbar is the Find Text and Replace. We can use this to find a word and replace it with another word. You can make it case dependent or match on whole words. So if we click on Find Next, it finds World. We can click on Replace, and it's now World 2, and there are no more matches. The next two icons are to do with compiling and running your application. The first icon will only compile your application. This will create an executable. If we have a look in our code folder, we will find there is now a demo1.exe file. We can quite easily double-click on this and run our application. Press a button on the keyboard to exit the console. The next icon is a compilation and an executable of the current file. If we click on that, it will compile and then run our application. I'm going to leave covering the next icon for a later video. This allows us to compile and debug our current file. The next icon we're going to look at in the toolbar is the one on the right, which is the help for PowerBasic. This launches the PowerBasic help file. In here, you can look through the help file for specific information. Alternatively, you can go to the actual command word itself, highlight it in the IDE, and press the F1 button. This will take you directly to the command word in the help file, and then you can look at the details. So today has been a brief introduction to the integrated development environment for the PowerBasic Console Compiler. We'll go into more detail on later videos. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to click on the link in the description below to discover more videos.